Another factor that contributes to this false idea that men get away with abuse is the role that hypergamy plays in dating and mating customs. Now, for those who don't know, hypergamy is the tendency of women to marry and date men who are wealthier than them. And that's a very generic, simplistic explanation of hypergamy. And let me say this as well. I'm not one of these influencer types who gets on camera and whines about hypergamy. We have enough whining in society. We have enough envy. We have enough grievance politics. So I'm certainly not here complaining about hypergamy. In fact, one could argue, and some have argued, that hypergamy encourages men to be more productive and to be better people. And that's possible. But hypergamy also cuts against this idea that men are entitled, that men have all this power and privilege. They certainly don't. Hypergamy ensures that only men who are capable and who are good at producing resources or acquiring resources are able to obtain the affection of women. Now, the problem with hypergamy, though, is that it often gives the impression that men do have power and privilege. And the reason for that is hypergamy creates a scenario whereby women tend to gravitate towards men who are older, more established, have more quote-unquote power, and have had time to acquire resources. So people will look at that and they'll say, well, there's a power differential, and they instantly assume that the men involved in these relationships are predatory. They never ask the question as to why women chase men like that. But they look at men in these scenarios, and there's this tendency, too, for people to impute the benefits that are enjoyed by men who are in these hypergamous relationships. They tend to impute that upon all men. So, for instance, I've seen this where you'll see a Hollywood guy, an older Hollywood guy who's out of shape and maybe not a very pleasant person, and yet they have all this attention from women. And I've seen people say, men can just, they can be as unattractive and out of shape as they want, and they still get all these beautiful women. Well, yeah, if you have a lot of money, if you have a yacht, you can pretty much do whatever you want and still attract women. But this, of course, is not an indication that men have any kind of power or privilege. And in fact, it's not even an indication that those men, those high-status men, have power and privilege, because obviously they had to do something worthwhile to acquire those resources. But it's very important to understand this concept, because this leads us down this road where I think people end up finding power and privilege and exploitation where it simply does not exist.